Sarah's fingers flew across the keyboard, counting out the 20s, 10s, and 5s. Her head throbbed. It was always busy at the First National Bank on Fridays. People cashed their paychecks, made deposits before the weekend, and generally created a flurry of activity that made Sarah's usually calm demeanor fray at the edges. She was a good teller, always polite and efficient. But today the pressure was immense. Her son, little Timmy, had a terrible cough, and she'd spent half the night worrying. A doctor's appointment loomed, and she knew the bill would stretch her already thin budget. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, adding to the building tension. Mrs. Peterson wanted exact change for a bus ticket. Mr. Henderson needed a complicated wire transfer. The line snaked back to the door. Sarah took a deep breath, trying to focus. She needed to stay sharp, avoid mistakes, and get through the day. Little did she know this Friday would be unlike any other. It would start like any other, but end with a surprise that would change her life. Just then, a man with a neatly trimmed white beard and a stern face approached Sarah's window. He wore a faded baseball cap with the words Vietnam Veteran embroidered on the front. He carried himself with a stiff posture, a slight tremor in his hands. He looked tired, but his eyes held a spark of something Sarah couldn't quite decipher. "Morning," he grumbled, his voice raspy. He placed a large, official-looking check on the counter. "Want to cash this?" Sarah picked up the check. It was a Treasury check made out to Thomas Thompson. The amount was significant. She noticed the man's name matched the one on his cap. He was a veteran, and this was likely a payment he relied on. She knew how important these checks were to people. This was more than just a transaction, it was someone's livelihood. She was extra careful with veterans. She made sure to smile and treat them with extra respect, but today that was harder than usual. As Sarah began to process the check, her phone buzzed in her pocket. It was the daycare. Her heart leaped into her throat. She knew it was about Timmy. With a shaky hand, she reached for her phone, momentarily forgetting the check in front of her. "First National Bank, Sarah speaking," she answered, her voice trembling slightly. The daycare worker's voice was laced with concern. "Sarah, Timmy's fever spiked. We think you need to come get him right away." Panic surged through Sarah. "Okay, I'm on my way," she stammered, her mind racing. In her distracted state, she reached for the wrong lever on her desk. Instead of stamping the check, she accidentally fed it into the shredder. The machine whirred to life, and in a matter of seconds, Mr. Thompson's Treasury check was reduced to confetti. Sarah gasped, her eyes widening in horror. The sound of the shredder seemed deafening in the suddenly silent bank. Mr. Thompson's face turned a shade of red that matched his baseball cap. His eyes narrowed and his jaw tightened. "What in the Sam Hill did you just do?" he bellowed, his voice echoing through the bank. Sarah's face flushed with shame and panic. "Oh my gosh, Mr. Thompson, I am so sorry," she cried, her voice cracking. "I didn't mean to. I got a phone call about my son and I wasn't paying attention. It was a complete accident." She gestured helplessly at the shredded remains of the check. "I can't believe I did that." She scrambled to gather the pieces, but they were too small, too numerous. It was a hopeless task. Tears welled up in her eyes. This was a disaster. Not only had she ruined Mr. Thompson's day, but she'd likely lose her job. How would she pay for Timmy's doctor? "I know this is no excuse, but I promise it was a mistake," she pleaded. "I'll do everything I can to fix this." Before Mr. Thompson could unleash another volley of complaints, Ms. Davis, the branch manager, hurried over. Ms. Davis was a tall, imposing woman with perfectly coiffed hair and a perpetually disapproving expression. "What's going on here?" she demanded, her voice sharp and authoritative. She surveyed the scene, taking in Mr. Thompson's angry face, Sarah's tear-streaked cheeks, and the pile of shredded paper on the counter. Sarah accidentally shredded Mr. Thompson's check, a nearby teller whispered nervously. Ms. Davis's eyes narrowed. "Accidentally shredded a Treasury check," she repeated, her voice dripping with disbelief. She turned to Sarah, her expression icy. "Sarah, come to my office. Now." Ms. Davis then turned to Mr. Thompson, forcing a smile. "Sir, I am so sorry about this inconvenience. We will get this sorted out for you as quickly as possible." However, her smile didn't reach her eyes, and Sarah could see she was more concerned about the bank's image than Mr. Thompson's well-being. She was definitely annoyed. Just as Sarah was about to follow Ms. Davis to her office, a hush fell over the bank. The kind of hush that meant something important was happening. Heads turned and eyes widened. The heavy glass doors swung open and a group of people entered. At the center of the group was a woman with an air of quiet authority. It was the Treasury Secretary, Ms. Johnson. Ms. Johnson was a well-known figure respected for her dedication to public service and her strong advocacy for veterans' rights. Her unexpected arrival sent a ripple of excitement and nervousness through the bank. 2 security guards flanked her, their presence adding to the sense of importance. Several other people, likely aides and advisors, trailed behind. Ms. Johnson smiled warmly, but her eyes scanned the room, taking everything in. It was clear this was no ordinary visit. This was a surprise inspection, and the timing couldn't have been worse for Sarah and Ms. Davis. Ms. Johnson's gaze fell upon the small crowd gathered near Sarah's window. She noticed Mr. Thompson's still red face and Ms. Davis's forced smile. Intrigued, she approached them. "Is everything all right here?" Ms. Johnson asked, her voice calm but firm. She looked directly at Ms. Davis, expecting an explanation. Ms. Davis, caught off guard, stammered slightly. "Madam Secretary, what a surprise." "Yes, everything is fine. Just a minor inconvenience." She gestured vaguely toward the shredded paper on the counter. A slight mishap, quickly being resolved. She hoped to downplay the situation and usher Ms. Johnson away, but Ms. Johnson was not easily deterred. She had a keen eye for detail and a strong sense of justice. Something felt off. "Inconvenience?" Ms. Johnson repeated, raising an eyebrow. "It doesn't look like a minor inconvenience. Perhaps you could elaborate." Ms. Davis, feeling the pressure, cleared her throat. "Well, Madam Secretary, one of our tellers, Sarah, had a small incident. She accidentally shredded Mr. Thompson's Treasury check. It was a rather large sum, and we are, of course, taking full responsibility and working to rectify the situation immediately. We are so sorry for any trouble this has caused Mr. Thompson." She emphasized large sum as if to suggest Sarah's mistake was particularly egregious because of the amount. She carefully avoided mentioning the reason for Sarah's distraction, wanting to paint a picture of a careless employee rather than a human being dealing with a family emergency. She also focused on the inconvenience to Mr. Thompson, subtly implying that Sarah had disrespected a veteran. Ms. Johnson's expression remained unreadable, but Sarah could sense her disapproval growing. The air thickened with tension. Ms. Johnson's eyes hardened. She was a fierce protector of veterans and their rights. The thought that someone might be treated with disrespect, especially regarding their hard-earned benefits, ignited a fire within her. She turned her attention to Mr. Thompson, her voice filled with genuine concern. "Mr. Thompson, I am so sorry you had to experience this. Please know that this does not reflect the values of the Treasury Department or the respect we have for our veterans." Then, turning back to Ms. Davis, her voice was noticeably colder. "And you, Ms. Davis, seem more concerned with covering up a mistake than with addressing the needs of a veteran. I find that deeply troubling." She paused, letting her words sink in. The silence in the bank was deafening. Everyone held their breath, sensing that something significant was about to happen. Ms. Johnson was clearly not happy. Ms. Johnson then turned to Sarah, her expression softening slightly. "And you, young lady," she said gently, "what's your side of the story?" Sarah, still trembling, looked up at Ms. Johnson. She hesitated for a moment, then took a deep breath and began to explain. "Madam Secretary, I am truly sorry for what happened. It was a terrible mistake. I got a phone call from my son's daycare. He's sick, and they needed me to pick him up. I was distracted and reached for the wrong button. I never meant to disrespect Mr. Thompson or his service." Tears welled up in her eyes again. "I know I messed up, and I'm ready to accept the consequences." She sniffled, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. She hoped Ms. Johnson would understand. She hadn't meant for any of this to happen. All she wanted was to provide for her son and do her job well. Ms. Johnson listened intently, her expression thoughtful. When Sarah finished, she nodded slowly. "I appreciate your honesty, Sarah," she said, her voice still gentle but now carrying a note of gravity. "Mistakes happen, and it sounds like you were dealing with a stressful situation. However," she continued, her voice firming, "this check represented a significant amount of money, and it was intended for a veteran who served our country. Handling these benefits requires the utmost care and respect. There is no room for carelessness." She paused, looking at Sarah with a mixture of understanding and disappointment. She knew Sarah's mistake wasn't malicious, but the consequences were still serious. It was crucial to maintain the integrity of the system and ensure veterans received the support they deserved. "Do you understand the seriousness of what happened?" Ms. Johnson asked. Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, Madam Secretary, I do. I truly do. I understand I made a big mistake, and I'm so sorry." Ms. Johnson then turned her attention back to Ms. Davis, her voice now sharp and filled with disappointment. "Ms. Davis," she said, her words cutting through the silence, "your handling of this situation has been completely unacceptable. Instead of supporting your employee during a difficult time and focusing on the needs of Mr. Thompson, you chose to prioritize damage control and downplay the incident. That is not the kind of leadership we expect, especially when it comes to serving our veterans." She paused, her gaze unwavering. "Your lack of empathy and your failure to support both your employee and a veteran are deeply concerning. It reflects poorly on this bank and on the Treasury Department." The weight of her words hung heavy in the air. Everyone knew what was coming. Without a moment's hesitation, Ms. Johnson made her decision. Her voice rang out clearly, silencing any remaining whispers. "Ms. Davis, effective immediately, you are terminated from your position as branch manager. I cannot and will not tolerate such a blatant disregard for the well-being of our veterans and the support of your employees." Ms. Davis gasped, her face paling. "But, Madam Secretary, you can't do that. This is unfair," she protested, her voice rising in panic. Ms. Johnson remained unmoved. "On the contrary, Ms. Davis, it is precisely what needs to be done. Your actions have demonstrated a lack of integrity and leadership that is simply unacceptable." She signaled to one of her aides, who stepped forward with a clipboard. "Please escort Ms. Davis from the premises." The aide gently took Ms. Davis by the arm, and the former branch manager, stunned and humiliated, was led away, leaving behind a bank full of shocked onlookers. The Treasury Secretary had just fired the branch manager. Once Ms. Davis was gone, Ms. Johnson turned her full attention to Mr. Thompson. She walked right up to him, extending her hand with a warm smile. "Mr. Thompson," she said sincerely, "I want to personally apologize for the trouble you've experienced today. This is not how we treat our veterans." She paused, making direct eye contact. "I promise you, I will personally ensure that a replacement check is expedited to you as quickly as possible. This will be my top priority. I understand this payment is important to you, and I want to make things right." She then instructed one of her aides to gather Mr. Thompson's information and coordinate with the Treasury Department to issue a new check immediately. She assured him that he would receive a call within 24 hours with updates and that the new check would arrive within a few business days. Her words were reassuring and genuine. Turning to the remaining bank staff, Ms. Johnson spoke with authority. "I expect Mr. Thompson to receive VIP treatment from this moment forward. I want the regional manager to contact him personally to offer a sincere apology. Furthermore, I want a full review of this branch's training procedures to ensure that all employees understand the importance of serving our veterans with the respect and dignity they deserve." She made it clear that she would be following up to ensure her instructions were carried out. She wanted to send a message that the Treasury Department valued its veterans and would not tolerate anything less than exceptional service. She also understood that systemic changes were needed to prevent similar incidents from happening in the future. This was about more than just one shredded check. It was about creating a culture of respect and support. Finally, Ms. Johnson turned her attention back to Sarah, who was still standing behind the counter, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and disbelief. Ms. Johnson approached her with a kind smile. "Sarah," she said, her voice gentle, "I understand you made a mistake, and I appreciate your honesty in admitting it. I also recognize that you were dealing with a difficult personal situation. While I cannot overlook the error, I believe you deserve a second chance." She paused, then continued, "I am impressed by your sincerity and your willingness to take responsibility. Therefore, I would like to offer you a position within the Treasury Department. It would be a role focused on improving the process of disbursing veterans' benefits, ensuring that these kinds of errors are minimized in the future." Sarah's jaw dropped. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. It was an unbelievable offer. "Madam Secretary," Sarah stammered, tears of gratitude now streaming down her face, I don't know what to say. Are you serious? After what I did?" Ms. Johnson smiled warmly. "Absolutely serious, Sarah. I believe everyone deserves a chance to learn from their mistakes and to use their experiences to make a positive impact. You have the opportunity to turn this difficult situation into something meaningful. Think about it, you can help prevent this from happening to other veterans." Sarah's mind raced. This was more than just a job, it was a lifeline. It was a chance to provide a better future for Timmy. It was a chance to prove herself. It was a turning point. "Yes, Madam Secretary," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "Yes, I accept. Thank you so much. This was a miracle." Mr. Thompson, who had been silently observing the entire exchange, finally spoke. His voice was softer now, the anger gone, replaced by a hint of something that sounded almost like gratitude. "Madam Secretary," he said, his gaze meeting Ms. Johnson's. "I have to say, I came in here pretty riled up, but I appreciate what you've done here today. You took a bad situation and turned it into something good. That young woman made a mistake, yes, but you gave her a second chance. And you stood up for veterans like me. That means a lot." He even offered Sarah a small, almost shy smile. "Don't worry, miss," he said to her. "We all make mistakes. Just learn from it." He seemed genuinely touched by the events that had unfolded. He started to walk toward the exit, carrying himself with a little more ease. The spark in his eyes was brighter than before. The remaining bank staff and customers watched in stunned silence as Ms. Johnson, with a final nod, turned to leave. They had witnessed a remarkable display of leadership, compassion, and decisive action. Ms. Johnson's commitment to veterans was undeniable, and her willingness to give someone a second chance had touched everyone present. The atmosphere in the bank had completely transformed. The tension and stress had dissipated, replaced by a sense of awe and inspiration. People whispered among themselves, marveling at the events that had just unfolded. They knew they had witnessed something truly extraordinary. It was a day they would never forget, a reminder that even in the most ordinary of places, extraordinary things can happen. The bank, once a place of routine transactions, had become a stage for justice and redemption. Sarah, still reeling from the whirlwind of events, took a deep breath and tried to compose herself. The day had been a roller coaster of emotions, from the stress of her son's illness to the horror of shredding the check and the fear of losing her job to the unbelievable opportunity that had just been presented to her. She knew she had a lot to learn, but she was determined to make the most of the second chance. She would work hard, she would be diligent, and she would never forget the lessons she had learned that day about responsibility, empathy, and the importance of serving others, especially those who had served their country. She would dedicate herself to ensuring that no other veteran had to experience the kind of inconvenience and disrespect that Mr. Thompson had faced. She wouldn't let Ms. Johnson down. She was ready to begin again. Years later, Sarah thrived in her role at the Treasury Department. She poured her heart and soul into improving the system for disbursing veterans' benefits. She implemented new training programs for bank tellers, emphasizing the importance of empathy and accuracy. She streamlined the process for replacing lost or damaged checks, making it faster and easier for veterans to access their funds. Her work had a real and tangible impact on the lives of countless veterans across the country. She received awards and recognition for her dedication and her innovative solutions. She often thought back to that fateful day at the First National Bank, and she realized that even the worst mistakes can lead to unexpected opportunities. Her son, Timmy, was healthy and happy, and she was proud of the work she was doing. The memory of that shredded check served as a constant reminder of the importance of her mission. One day, a few years after starting at the Treasury Department, Sarah received a visitor. It was Mr. Thompson. He wasn't there to complain or to seek assistance. He was there simply to say hello. He explained that he often came to the Treasury Department for various reasons and that he always made it a point to stop by and see her. They would chat about his life, his family, and his experiences in the war. He'd tell her stories, sometimes funny, sometimes sad, but always filled with wisdom. Over time, they developed an unlikely but heartwarming friendship. Mr. Thompson became a mentor to Sarah, offering her guidance and support. He admired her dedication and her unwavering commitment to serving veterans. He even joked that she was doing more for veterans now than he ever did during his time in the military. Their bond was a testament to the power of forgiveness and the ability to find common ground even after a rocky start. Back at the First National Bank, things also changed. The regional manager, deeply embarrassed by the incident, implemented sweeping new training programs focused on empathy, customer service, and the specific needs of veterans. The bank partnered with local veterans organizations to provide financial literacy workshops and other resources. They even created a Veterans Appreciation Day, where they honored local veterans with special events and discounts. The bank transformed from a place where a veteran's check could be accidentally shredded into a place that actively celebrated and supported those who had served. The memory of Ms. Johnson's visit served as a constant reminder of the importance of treating everyone with respect and dignity, especially those who had sacrificed so much for their country. The bank finally understood that serving the community meant serving its veterans with genuine care and compassion. And so, the story of the bank teller who shredded a veteran's check became a legend. It was a story about mistakes, consequences, and second chances. It was a story about leadership, compassion, and the importance of treating everyone with respect. Most importantly, it was a story about how even the smallest act of kindness can have a ripple effect, transforming lives and communities for the better. Ms. Johnson's swift action not only helped Mr. Thompson and Sarah but also inspired lasting change at the First National Bank and beyond. The tale served as a reminder that everyone has the power to make a difference and that sometimes the most unexpected events can lead to the most extraordinary outcomes. And though the shredder may have initially seemed like a symbol of destruction, it ultimately became a symbol of hope, redemption, and the enduring power of the human spirit.